For 13 years, every single Deep Purple studio album has been shaped by one man who isn't in the band, Bob Ezrin. Soon to be 6 albums with SPLAT, more than any producer in their history. And in the comment sections, yes, these ones, a question keeps coming up. Has the Ezrin era made Deep Purple too polished, too controlled, too produced? Today I'm putting that question on trial. Prosecution, defense, and a verdict. Except the verdict isn't mine. It arrives July 3rd, and I'll explain why at the end. First, who we're talking about, because Bob Ezrin's CV is absurd. Alice Cooper's classic run, Kiss, Destroyer, Pink Floyd, The Wall. I mean, he's not a knob twiddler. This is a producer famous for taking charge. Arrangements, song structures, the lot. A director, not a cameraman. And in 2013, that director walked into the studio with Deep Purple for Now What? And he never left. Infinite, Whoosh, the Turning to Crime covers album equals one, and next month, Splat. 6 records. By comparison, in the classic era, Purple produced themselves with Martin Birch behind the desk, capturing the chaos. And Machine Head was famously thrown together in Montreux in a matter of a couple of weeks, with a mobile studio and then performing in a corridor. It's a head-on collision between two worlds, 1972 chaos versus 2026 control. The question is, what happens when they collided? Because a producer who built the wall isn't there to just sit back and watch. He's there to lead. And for some fans, that's exactly where the trouble starts. Here's the case some of you have been making in my comments, and it deserves a fair hearing. Classic Purple was a band barely in control of itself, and that was the magic. 5 players pulling in different directions, captured live, rough edges and all. You can hear the room, you can hear the risk. The prosecution says that the Ezrin albums sound supervised. Every song the right length, every solo budgeted, the jams trimmed, the chaos combed. The phrase that keeps coming up in the comments is boxed in, the sense that you're hearing 5 brilliant musicians coloring inside lines somebody else drew. And with a director-producer like Ezrin, that's not a crazy theory. Controlling the picture is literally his reputation, and on his most famous records, it's exactly why they're great. The strongest version of this argument is Deep Purple's identity is the absence of a boss. Putting a boss in the room, however brilliant, changes the band into something adjacent to itself. That's the prosecution. And if you've ever played In Rock and Whoosh back to back, you can't pretend you don't hear what they're talking about. New here? This is the channel where we take fan arguments seriously enough to put them on trial. Subscribe if you want to be in the jury. Now the defense rises. Now the other side, and it's formidable. Remember where Purple were before Ezrin? The 2000 records had their moments. You know, I'll defend parts of them. I love Rapture of the Deep, but plenty of fans and critics felt the band was drifting, making, decent albums that disappeared from memory in a couple of weeks. Then Now What arrives, and something changes. The reviews turn. The albums start topping charts across Europe again. A band 45 years into its career, back in the conversation, with critics using the phrase late career resurgence without irony. That doesn't happen 6 times in a row by accident. The Ezrin era didn't shrink Deep Purple. Commercially and critically, it resurrected them. And the defense has a deeper point. Maybe the discipline is the gift. A band in its 5th and 6th decade doesn't need a cameraman capturing the chaos. It needs an editor with taste and someone whom the band trusts to say that idea and not that one. Listen to Uncommon Man or The Surprising or The Best of Equals One. Does that sound like a band that's boxed in or a band with focus? The strongest version of this argument is that Birch's job was to capture a hurricane. Ezrin's job is to make sure there's still weather. Different decades need different producers. And now the twist that made me make this video now. Look at how the band is selling SPLAT, the official line, the heaviest Deep Purple album in many years. Recorded with the band playing together live in the studio and Gillan in the press comparing the new material directly to the dynamics and the fun of what they made between 69 and 73. Remember that. Heaviest in years, like 69 to 73. That is the band and Ezrin himself answering this exact criticism. Whether they hear the fans or just feel the same itch, the message of the SPLAT campaign is essentially, we heard you, we feel it too, here comes a raw one. So the singles are our first evidence. I've reviewed both Arrogant Boy and Diablo, and the question to take back to them now is different. Do they sound boxed in, or do they sound loose? Go listen again with prosecution ears, then defense ears. I'll tell you this much. I've changed my mind once already, especially after hearing the live versions onto the tubes. So, has Bob Ezrin changed Deep Purple too much? Here's my honest position going in. Absolutely not. I think Ezrin has been an amazing partner for the band. I can't think of another band of a similar vintage putting out such consistently great stuff as Purple have done in the last 13 years. But the real verdict gets delivered July 3rd by the album itself. If SPLAT genuinely sounds live and heavy and 70s loose, the defense wins and the boxed-in era is over. If it comes up polished to a mirror shine, despite everything the campaign promised, the prosecution rests. I'll have a full scorecard review the week it drops. Subscribe so you're in the jury room when it happens. And before you go, comments. Team raw or team polished? Has the Ezrin era been the resurrection or the taming of Deep Purple? Have a great day.